Greetings, gumshoes, and welcome to another episode of Silver Screen Sleuths. My name is Emily Edwards, and I am a mystery author of the Viviana Valentine Girl Friday series that came out a million years ago that nobody read. I am here today with a very, very lovely thriller author who I'm so excited to talk about, like the book that changed modern thriller publishing. Jaime Lynn Hendricks, how the hell are you?
Good. How the hell are you?
I am so good. I love seeing your smiling face because we've been friends via the internet for a little while, but now I get to hear a voice and see a face and talk with my hands at you, apparently.
I'll give it too. Get me going.
I have knocked this mic over like the countless thousands of times.
I'm like, you can't see, but I'm like 2 feet away from my desk because things are going to go flying.
We are discussing Gillian Flynn, the adaptation of Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, which she wrote the screenplay for,
and you can tell,
for a little known director named David Fincher. Just, he's up and coming. Not sure if you've ever heard of him before. Just,
I maybe heard of one other thing, but
Yeah, just a swell young guy. I did the book many years ago for my old podcast called Fuckboys of Literature. I did that with a English writer named Philip Ellis, who now writes rom-coms. And I was like, you chose the most insane book to talk about if you're a rom-com writer. But thankfully, you're a thriller writer. So we get to get into the nitty-gritty of the thriller. Can you tell us a little bit about the books that you've written and published and your career?
Yes. And I'm an idiot. I should have just grabbed this real quick. This was my debut. Finding Tessa. And this was actually pitched as Gone Girl Meets Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell, because it starts out the same way, but not really. It starts out with like chapter 1 where the wife is missing. There's like broken glass and hair, and the husband comes home, and obviously he calls the cops and they don't believe him. And his sections are written in third person. So he's obviously there are things going on that he is not, he's like, oh, thank God they ask how the marriage was. And he's like, in his own mind, he's like, oh, okay, I got to lie here.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, thank God I burned the note I wrote to her this morning. And like, all this stuff. But then it immediately goes to chapter 2, and it goes to Tessa in first person. And she is running from her husband, who she's got a very long line of assholes that she has been with. And she has not done well at all with love. Everybody's an asshole. Everybody was either abusive or just, whether it was physically, emotionally, like everything, she's just been through the ringer. And she has just left the most current asshole, and she is setting him up to take her fall. So she's alive from the beginning.
That's good.
And that Jace is, so it's Jace and Tessa. So Jace is also under the microscope immediately. The thing that's completely different about this, you'll think you're reading Gone Girl until about a third of the way through. And then it's just like, bam! Like there is a completely different twist that makes you realize, like, I am not reading Gone Girl at all. This is a completely different book. And it really, really takes it on a completely different trajectory than you thought that you were going, which I liked, and which is why it was, I guess, a good book to be my debut. Actually, the one that got my first agent was actually called It Could Be Anyone. It's that one up there. I'm picking me up again. That one got my agent, but as you know, the way, publishing is very extra, it died on sub. But also we found out when that was on sub, the guest list by Lucy Foley was in Arc Stage. And it's similar, but like Murder Wedding and the whole thing. So that one was getting all the attention. So everyone was just like, no, this is like too similar. But how was I supposed to know? Like, obviously, you've written that like 2 years before this was even a thought in my head. But, that was really unfortunate. But I was writing Finding Tessa as soon as we went on sub. So it was finished. I mean, I think it was April of 2000 I finished it, because that went on sub in September of 19. And then I finished writing this in April of 2000. We put it on sub shortly after. My old agent loved this book. She actually said I wouldn't change a word. So we went on sub with it exactly the way it was. You know how like you get opinions back when you get a rejection? It said, They say like, this isn't for me because. So one of them said because, and look, I'll just say what the original ending was because it's not this anymore.
Yeah.
They said it was because it was July of 2020. Now, if you remember at all what July of 2020 was like, we weren't combing hair and like eating ice cream cones and, life was not fun. Life was just as dreadful as can be and about to get worse.
Yeah. And you were terrified all the time.
Yes. So we got the first rejection that said, I cannot deal with the fact that a pregnant lady dies. it was like, okay. And, my old agent said, like, one person's rejection is one person's rejection. So, let it go. But then four came back and said the same thing. She was like, okay,
Yeah.
we have to rewrite the last half of the book. So I'm actually very, very fast when I know I have to. I rewrote the entire last half of the book in about 10 days.
My God.
And yeah, and then it went back on sub and it sold 2 weeks later. So like obviously the problem was that she was pregnant and then died at the end. So she is not pregnant and dead at the end for anybody who, doesn't want to read anything like that. She is not pregnant and dead at the end, I promise you.
It's genuine. Like, I'm so glad you went into that because one of the things that we don't talk about a lot, even though I've only had authors on this show, is the really circuitous, complicated route to getting published. It is
Complicated. It's an understatement.
such like I can't even tell you just like the amount of work that you have to do before you're even a twinkle in an agent's eye is just such an astronomical amount of work. You have to figure out who you are as a person, what you're comfortable writing, your tone, the
Your voice.
vocabulary you use that's natural for you, the cadence that you use that's natural for you, what you want to accomplish with the stories that you're going to tell, because you will get pushed into a niche very, very quickly the
Yes.
second anybody looks at you. And I think that that is such an important thing to know about yourself if you do want to have any sort of longevity or success in the industry, is you have to know what you're going to be comfortable sort of being pigeonholed as.
Right.
That's not a negative. It's like you
No,
have
I
to.
was definitely pigeonholed as a popcorn thriller author, which I am perfectly comfortable with that because that's my favorite thing to read anyway. So I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah, man, like give me like the twist and the fast pace and like, the mean people and like, rich people behaving badly and all that. Like I love stuff like that.
There's
So
so
I'm
much
perfectly
meat
happy
there.
being a popcorn.
Yeah. I mean, popcorn thriller is, I pick them up like most of the time. I oscillate between like as a reader, like a couple of like really weird sort of genres. It's really old mysteries, like stuff written in like the 90s where you're just kind of
With
like,
the fedora and the cigar.
exactly, exactly. Like I got really into the Miss Silver mysteries, which is like this very like old sort of very Victorian, like post-Victorian, but barely after mystery series where it's like everybody ends up getting married at the end. And it's like the most ridiculous, fluffy thing, but it was written in like 1930. I read a lot of popcorn thrillers because they're so meaty and you just love that experience of like rich people behaving badly or like what are your neighbor's dirty secrets. It's so fun to read. And then I read like really heavy duty nonfiction where you're just like, yeah, I'm going to read 600 pages about the life of Paul Revere. And people are like, who the hell are you? And why are you doing this?
I stick with thrillers. They're not all popcorn thrillers, but I mean, there's the other side. There's
Yeah.
there's there's quite a few, and that's just one of the three shelves I have in here. There are other books, but they are mostly popcorn thrillers. I just I love them. They're everybody that like you see on like Bookstagram and everything, that all the like Ashley Winstead and Michelle
Yeah.
Campbell and Sam Bally and Robin Harding, like just give me everything. I vacuum them. It's great.
It's so great. And I love the fact when you do stumble, everything now, it's difficult when you are selling a book that is lightly tangentially similar because you do have to position your books when you're talking to agents or you're talking to acquisition editors. You have to say, it's like this meets this in order for them to have a concept of the marketability or just even the market shelf of the book
Right, but
that
it
you're
can't
trying
be
to
the
sell.
plot. It has to be like the same reader, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And then oftentimes, especially now, you get, don't position it as the next Gone Girl, even though it might be
Yeah,
the same reader,
that's it.
because this book took like fundamentally changed how we view like women in thrillers. And it's so
This was
fascinating.
2020, so it was only 4 years later, but now it's 10 years later, and it's like, you can't now. It's a 10-year-old book now. It doesn't resonate. There have been other The New Gone Girls that are better comps, I think, for people now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's strange how explosive this book and its immediate movie adaptation, because the release of the film adaptation coincided with the release of the book in paperback That's how fast it was. Gillian Flynn she sold millions and millions of copies of this book.
Because it was the first of its kind with like that massive, crazy change of a dual POV and also like a real villain that you didn't think was a real villain.
Yes.
Like I loved it.
I want to go back to the dual POV because that's something that's done very well in the book and I think exceptionally well in the movie.
Yes. Agreed.
And for some reason, like David Fincher is not necessarily a director, as much as I really love his books, is not a director who I think has any real history of being known as like sympathetic to women. But I think when you get to Amy, exactly. I mean, like, not notoriously a friend to feminist narratives at large, but I think giving him Amy to work with, the way that even just because she's nuts.
Yep. And that's why I think the movie translated so well because she was nuts and you got, the right director for that movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, one thing, what's really great is you spend so much time with Ben Affleck, who, again, for as much as we know about that man's personal life,
awful.
Incredible casting of him in this. Like,
yeah, I know. Could you imagine? It's like his real life.
That dude, like, he just can't help himself with like the being known to everybody. Like,
yep.
And it translates so well to screen where you are watching this and you're just kind of like, this could be a story out of Ben Affleck's actual life because of how well we know all of his.
And I love how the book and the movie, because like the first half of the book is all him and you were like, what a fucking scumbag. Like he's just the worst. And he never changes. He always is the worst, but somehow you get a little bit of sympathy for him. Because she's worse. And it's like, oh my God, how are you dealing with this freaking cycle? Like, I don't blame you for doing everything that you're doing.
Oh my God, you're an older man and you're having sex with a 20-year-old who you're a teacher and you're just like, oh my God, you're so scummy. You are so terrible. And then you meet his wife and you're just like, nah, I get it.
Yep. But nope, she is literally the worst.
She's so awful. I have to say that one of the things that really grabbed me for the first half of this movie is the cinematography is so dark. The everything, you can't see shit while you're watching this movie. And,
you have to watch it at night with like everything off. You can't watch it during the daytime.
Exactly. I had to like draw all my curtains and, like turn everything down so you can see it. And one of the things, whoever was the location scout on this movie, in order to choose where they filmed, earned their, I'm sorry? It was perfect. And that creepy neighborhood where they are filming, where it's all like the McMansions and there's no fences. And I was just like, that's my personal hell. That is literally my personal hell.
And then you get the what you find out are like the crazy neighbors who he had no idea they were even like friends. And then they're all coming over and it's like, okay, like who the hell are you? It's, we come over here all the time. It's like, excuse me.
This is like the suburban nightmare of this. Yeah. And my favorite thing is like his and Amy's house that they're renting. They're not owners. They're renting is that house in the planned community that sucks because it's like on the peninsula. And so they're surrounded on 3 sides by people just watching their house. And I was like, oh my God, they are like the location scout for this just earned every last cent of how they made, like how they chose what neighborhood to do this in. It was flawless.
It was funny because I moved into a neighborhood in December of 2020, but it's in Florida on like a small like barrier island off St. Pete Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who lives here is like in their 60s and retired. I don't know. I mean, I know one of my neighbors because I knew him before I moved into this neighborhood. Other than that, I've been here almost 3 years. I don't know any of my neighbors because nobody's coming out. No one's baking a cake together. No one's borrowing a cup of sugar. Nobody talks to anybody. Like, this is the best place to move.
Of living in like cities, because I'm just like, the anonymity of it is so nice. And I
Yeah.
love how well this book and again, Gillian's actual adaptation to the screen is so faithful to a point to her book that
Yes.
she's just like, yeah, the worst thing in the world. Because you're going to understand this because I kept writing in my notes over and over, my God, they hate New Yorkers so much.
But that came from Boston Ben.
That's true.
And that's why he was so like true to life, because he hates New Yorkers. He's a Boston guy. He's a Red Sox guy.
I remember like at some point he's trying to stay anonymous and he puts on like a Yankees hat and
and they made him take it off.
Yeah. And he was really pissed that they made him like put on the Yankees hat because he wanted to wear a Sox hat. And it was just like, jerk.
But that shows just like so much about his personality. And like, but in that scene, he's like nasty and angry and like, but I think it was because of the hat, but it was also because of his character. So I think it fit really well.
Yeah, it fits. Like this movie is interesting because like once they moved to Missouri and like, again, I've driven through Missouri and and I'm like, I know very little about Missouri. Sorry, Missourians. And Amy's so mad that she had to move to this tiny little town. And then like,
that's his family.
Yes. Oh God, I'm so sorry. You have to like take care of your mother and get to know his sister. Like you horrible little sociopath. Yes. You have to be known to people.
Well, she already was. She was what? Amazing Amy. So she was known.
I had completely forgotten about that detail of the book until the movie played it out in such wonderful detail. I had completely forgotten about that she was fictionalized to be the perfect daughter. And I'm like, oh God, you're right. It hadn't stuck with me because everything else overshadows it so much, like the sociopathy and the murder eventually, overshadows it so much. But the first thing I wrote down, I was like, oh my God, all the Instagram kids that are being used now, what are they going to come to?
Exactly right. And that's the thing. Like, she hated it, but she loved it. Like, she was such a narcissist. Such a narcissist. Like, just to think of who the hell she was and she can get away with anything, which she did when it comes down to it. But yeah, it was just because she was like, her character was just so terrible. So terrible.
The movie spends a lot of time having him interact with her parents. And the visual of watching him do Midwestern nice while the parents are doing this really understandable angry grieving because they don't know what's happening, but they're intelligent enough to know that it's usually the husband. And, again, all the clues start pointing to it being the husband because that's how investigations go. And Amy's smart enough to point them in that direction. And they get so, I don't know, like they get so performatively, like extremely bitter and angry. And there's a point where they're doing like a search next to a river. And she's just like, and the mother is just like so furious. And she's just like, this whole place smells like shit.
Right. That's somebody coming from New York City who says it smells like shit.
Exactly.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, we've smelled those rivers.
That was just like to be insulting because they were,
I know.
They were snobby little things. And then to find out after that, like, what happened? Like their publisher like pulled them or something. And like all of a sudden, like they were going to fade into nothingness. And like they were just being bitter bitches. I mean, know.
Yeah, no, I love that detail because I don't remember that in the book. Like, it's just been so long since I've read the book that Amy had to, sell her brownstone at a loss in the 2008 crisis, which like you had a brownstone, you still probably made $3 million off of that.
I lived in New York City from 2002, the beginning of 2002. I moved a few months after 9/11, right up until the end of 2008. That's when I moved to suburban New Jersey. And when I I moved to Hoboken in 2008 and I was there for 8 years. Then I moved to suburban New Jersey. But in the time that I was in New York City, it was actually great because it was right after 9/11 and everybody was friendly to everybody and everybody was like one type of person. And then like we just started getting toward the end, which is why I left. It just started getting like, they just kind of see the writing on the wall. It just started like exploding. Things were starting to get like crazy. So I was just like, I'm just moving across the river. So we just went to Hoboken. And my husband was like, no, we're going to, he wanted to go straight from Midtown Manhattan because we were on 37th and 6th. And he wanted to go straight from there to like Bergen County, New Jersey. And I said, I would sooner die he wanted to buy a place. So I said, well, we'll buy one of the new condos in Hoboken. So he said, fine, but we'll be there for 3 years, 5 tops. And then we're moving to suburbia New Jersey. So after 8 years, because I was
You compromised.
I said, fine, we could move to suburban New Jersey, but it's got to be Monmouth County where I grew up. Because if I'm going to be suburbia, I want to be around my family and my friends. And I'm not going to Bergen County. So we did that. And then we lived there for 6 years before we moved to Florida. So I'm never moving again.
We have the acceptable radius of like how far outside the city you're willing to live.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't care. And Bergen County was closer, but I'm like, don't care. I am not going there. No. I am not Real Housewifing of anything. Like, no.
No. I can't wear 4-inch heels the way that's required.
Like, and they all had they all have kids. So it was like you hear about the drive line, the drop off line, and then like how do you have to dress up to go get coffee, and you need your hair done and your heels on to go get coffee. And I'm like, yeah, that's no. They're not going to like me. I'm not going there.
Yeah. I moved back to Connecticut very briefly. Like I always lived on the Metro North line. Like you can always get on the train and go into the city directly at Grand Central Station. You're there in 90 minutes. And so it's like, that's an acceptable distance to me. And then during the pandemic, 2022, we moved back to Connecticut because we were like, it's so much less expensive. And we did. And it was like, oh God. Like
it started.
Yeah. And the child focus is very alarming when you don't have kids. You don't notice it when you are a kid because you're like, great, everything revolves around me and my happiness. But then once you're an adult and you don't have children, the baby focus is very surprising.
I call it the stroller mafia.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, you're going to get run down by a Honda Odyssey in whatever parking lot you're in because.
Did you see the controversy on Threads right now about that kid who somebody were in a restaurant and somebody was having a birthday and the toddler said that she wanted the cake and the parents were like, oh, my toddler gets what my toddler wants. And like, they just let the kid go and like interrupt somebody else's family celebration and be like, I want cake. And like, that's so embarrassing. And I bet everybody there didn't want to be like, oh my God, like we're not going to, deny a child. And then the parents like, see, they were so nice. They wanted to give it to her. No, the fuck they didn't. They don't want your kid around their adult only celebration. But these parents with these kids that are obsessed with their children do not understand that. The ones who are like, my precious toddler gets whatever my precious toddler wants. Like, no, bring your toddler to my table. Your toddler's getting yeeted to the moon.
From you, maybe, but everybody else did not give birth to that toddler. That's an insane understanding of how the world works. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I need to nope out of this conversation because I am going to be way too mean.
Yeah. But that was the other thing, like in the book too, how, with the pregnancy and whatever, I don't even, oh no, she ended up really being pregnant at the end.
Yeah. She
like faking it first just to get the sympathy from the stroller mafia people.
Yes.
Like, that's insane.
It's insane.
And also she was planning on leaving and toward her plan was to kill herself until she got caught with what's his name? Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
When he did not play along the way that she had thought he was going to.
Yes.
She had a pivot.
Yeah.
And she had to go back and she did not want to go back. And he didn't want her back. I just remember when he hugged her, he's like, fuck you.
Yes. Which is like the most realistic, cathartic thing I've ever seen in a movie where it's just
cameras on them. Oh, so great.
And he's just like, you are such a fucking bitch. And it's like, yeah, that is the most well-deserved you're a bitch I've ever seen on screen.
Yep.
But while I was watching this, I feel like the world has changed so much since this came out, and that when it came out, it was this really revolutionary sort of, again, to use the word cathartic, of just oh my God, we get to watch women be evil. And it was so nice. It was so nice to see this.
Trust me, it's in us.
Exactly. It's like we've all had that fantasy where we, it's like I played field hockey for a couple of years when I was in high school. And whenever I see some guy being a real piece of shit, I have the mental image of myself walking up to him with those big club sticks that we had and just cracking him across the jaw. Teeth go flying. We all have this this moment where we're just like, my weapon of choice is this, and this is how I would utilize it against this absolute piece of shit. And we all have it in us.
And that's why, right. That's why thriller writers are among the nicest people you will ever meet, because we kill them on page. We think about and then we literally do it on page, and it is very cathartic.
It really is. It's such a wonderful therapy. And the way we were allowed to revel in that anger, that tumultuous thing where it's like for years, for generations, we've had this nastiness and we're just like, oh my God, you have to bury it down and then just become little Susie Homemaker with a perfect smile. And you're just like, God, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And it's like you had Valley of the Dolls in the 70s where we're like, we're angry, so we're just going to do drugs about it. And you're just like, great, no problem. I get it.
You do
totally. Like, you're not allowed to have a credit card or a job. So again, just do drugs about it. Fantastic. And then this came along and we were like, oh, we're allowed to have our own credit cards and rent apartments and buy cars and serve on a jury. And so we can just revel. One of the things that's really interesting about how women work in fiction and how we're received as characters is that male characters are allowed to be individuals, whereas like female characters are often seen as indicative of all women. And so I feel like a lot of the legacy of Gone Girl, unfortunately, has kind of been like, see, all women are, like this level or can attain or aspire to like this level of sociopathy. And I feel like in our current political climate, that sort of kind of gets twisted. But I might be overly negative.
No, I think people are angry. I think people are angry. I think people are angry, and I think people are rightfully angry. I also think some people take it too far. There's this new thing about, people, like all people all the time, men and women and both sides of the aisle, like putting hands on people. And I don't like that. Like, you could disagree with somebody without having to put your hands on them.
Yeah.
And that's like a new thing that people are doing that they just feel entitled to. And I was like, where the hell did this come from? Like, that's like a new type of anger. I would rather do anger Amy's way and just, fake my death and then, frame my husband.
Exactly. That's art. Anybody can throw a punch. This is artful.
Anybody could cry and stomp their hands and their feet, but, I'd rather, I actually like the planning aspect of it. I'm like, this is how I'm going to not get caught. And trust me, I'm an expert at that. My husband sleeps with one eye open because he's like, she could take me out at any moment and she will get away with it.
That's one of the things that I actually kept thinking while watching this movie. It was like, like no fault divorce exists. Like, it's a very simple thing. And also happy marriages exist. Like, you could just marry someone you like.
Yes, that too. But to be fair, well, no, she didn't marry someone she liked. She said from the beginning, she played a character from the second she met him. But I definitely think you can just marry someone you like. I think you find that you actually like people more than you don't, and you could marry one of them. Like, but there's just this like epidemic now. It's like, I'll marry him. If I don't like him, I'll just, I'll just get divorced. And like the red flags are there in the beginning. Like when you're dating, the red flags are there. Like, why are you marrying this guy? Why are you marrying walking red flag?
Why are you doing this?
Yeah, like it's your own fault now. Like you married a walking red flag. Like the signs were there.
You can't fix a bad boy. We know this.
God, well, and see, I'd still blame Dylan McKay for that. Like that was when we all got obsessed with Mr. Bad Boy. It was Dylan McKay, and we won't see it any different.
Oh, I had Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where you're just kind of like, neither Angel or Spike are worth you trying to fix them. They're literal demons.
I'm literally the only person on the face of the earth who has never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
One of the things that I think is really genius about Gone Girl in both the movie and the book is that, and one thing that I noticed when I was talking about Zodiac another tiny little flick from our pal David Fincher, was that Zodiac works really well because of the structure of it, in that it's him sort of going into analyzing the private investigator versus police procedural versus amateur sleuth sort of construct of how we think about mystery fiction. The thing that Gone Girl, I think, does really well is that you have the tropes of the who done it, the why done it, and the how catch 'em. And it's all of them all at once. And I was wondering, do you write thrillers through the perspective of like do you go for like the thrill and the twist first, or do you also really put some time into thinking about like the crime at hand and how the people investigating it are going to be like looking into it?
Well, with mine, there, like I said, the murder is always very popcorny. It's not, it's very rarely on the page. I mean, if it is on the page, it's like like on it could be anyone. The groom dies halfway through page one. He ate a nut, he got poisoned, and he just like drops down on the dance floor. That was, I think, the only on page murder that I had. Well, wait, I had one other one, but it was like a flashback from like what they did in high school, and but all of my murders are just like, oh, there's a dead body. Like, or now I'm doing something about, this dead body. But I actually do not have, my characters they're not cozy. Like, they don't sleuth around. They kind of are all like at some point, like either friends with the dead person or somebody, their family is friends with the dead person. And they're not trying to figure it out. They're just kind of being played into this scenario where they are somehow connected to this dead person. And I don't do any police procedural at all. Like, I may have a detective who's going to ask questions every once in a while, but it's not, you never get a detective's or a cop's point of view with me. That's not my thing. Mine are all, the cul-de-sac killers, where,
right.
Like a neighbor died, or like, somebody died. And then like the friends and stuff like want to know why. And like they're asked some questions, by the police, but then like they start figuring out, like, as they talk to each other, like my husband was, giving her lessons on this. Like, I didn't know that. And then the other one, oh, well, she was a patient of my husband's. I didn't know that. And then it's like, oh, well, and then he says, well, I can't because of HIPAA laws. Like, why would I tell you that she's my patient? But then it's like, well, I'm your wife and she's dead. And now they're looking at you because, like, she had your card on her when she was found, when her body was found. Like, what's going on? And it's basically like that. It's basically like the suburban conversation surrounding the death. It's not, there's no true crime like podcast doing it. There's no police, like,
Right.
anything. It's just very much like, not that the neighbors are solving it either, but the neighbors are putting together the whys a little bit better than
the
information.
information.
Like, the cops are. Yeah. Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, as they talk to each other, it's like, okay, well, one of them had a secret about the other one that they never said anything. But now that, you're not going to get in trouble for saying anything. Like, I've got to tell you now because, like, she's dead and this might be relevant. This is what she said about the other one, and this is what she did with the other one. And, we're all friends, like, and we never knew. So, yeah, I actually prefer that because to me, that's a little bit more real life because we live in such a world of drama and scandal and, real housewives of stuff and people like just making the biggest deal out of it. Like, everybody's in each other's business. So I don't do any Real Housewife of anything. I'm not on that level, but
Neither.
But I do like how they kind of eke things out of each other, and not with throwing tables at them, but with like just kind of like just talking to them in a certain way, like that that you can get something out of them, and I think friends could do that to each other. And neighbors can do that to each other. And normal people can do that to each other better than a cop can. Because when people are talking to a cop, they're inherently nervous. And they're not going to say, they can't say. But in front of somebody regular, I feel like people are easier to read. They'll say a lot more because they can. And they don't know what they're saying is completely relevant. So I like it that way. I like it that way. I like having like all these like connections with neighbors and friends, and with I Didn't Do It, that was like murder at Thriller Fest, and one of the thriller authors is dead in a hotel room, and then you find out that the 4 authors, which is the 4 points of view, all had a secret that was attached to her. And the only person that knows is a Twitter account. And it starts following these 4, and then it starts like doling out these little things. And then these 4 find out like, wow, we're the only ones like attached to this, that this Twitter account is following. And it's like spilling all these secrets. And it was fun because it was like, one was like a total newbie author. Like she just got an agent. She hasn't even been published yet. So she's like trying to kiss everyone's ass and like do the whole thing. And the other one is like a mid-list author, which is basically like 90% of authors. Just, you're just a regular author. You're writing books. You're selling them. You're not super famous. You're not on any talk shows or Reese or, Good Morning America.
Yeah.
So most authors. And then there's one who is egomaniac, and he was not at all written about anybody that we know. But like, you can't, like, he was like super famous, and like all of his like debut was optioned before it's even out, like 3 months before it's even out. And you can't look him in the eye when you speak to him. And he's just total douchey, like horrible person. And then the other one is a has-been. And he was very big in like the 80s and 90s, and all of his last 4 books flopped, and he's got this big comeback secret, and he's trying to, come back. And I think I liked the way the 4 of them played off of each other, because they were in such different spots in their writing careers. So I think they said way more to each other than they would ever say to a cop investigating about another a dead author's murder. They're talking to each other about like, this is what we write about. This is what we do. This is how my character would do it. So I like that one, because that was very close to home. So that was very easy to write.
When I heard like the log line for that book, I was like, oh, that's the best idea I've ever heard. It is so good. I love that conceit for that book.
Guerrilla writer conventions can be murder. That's the log line.
Love it.
It was a good
love
one.
it.
Yeah, my publisher came up with that one.
I think one thing that worked really well, again, Ben Affleck was perfect casting for Nick in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that they gave him a sister and another woman to do all the emotional labor for him. And I felt like that was so...
And she did. Like, she treated him like a toddler.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. And weird casting, but Tyler Perry as his like...
Always our lawyer. Great.
Because there's like a couple of really good famous like divorce lawyers that like, if this one person gets like this one celebrity divorce lawyer, you're like, I can't wait to see what happens in this, because it's gonna get
because there's
messy.
there's like five of them out there. I mean, at the time Johnny Cochran was still alive, like that would have been great.
Right.
But there's like the famous divorce lawyers like out in LA, that every time like famous celebrity couples getting divorced, like they hire these 2 lawyers because they're the best. And that's why this one is, and again, they'll do it, not that they were famous, but the case was famous, and these people just want their face on television. So the fact that it was Tyler Perry, it just was like comedic relief. And it didn't mean to be, but it just was, because that's just his personality. Yeah,
exactly. Because he's so larger than life, and he delivers every line where it's like, you're a dumbass and you're going to go to jail for this. True enough. Like, he almost goes to jail.
Buttoned up lawyer wouldn't say that. So, but it came off perfectly.
Now, you mentioned that, like at the top of the recording, that the ending changed. Can you kind of go into detail? Because I remember the ending being fairly different in the book, but the ending in the movie is just so perfect that I was like, I'm now like a little fuzzy on what they changed.
I remember when I was
reading
it, which I do not have my first edition hardcover anymore, because I lent it to my neighbor when I lived in Hoboken, and her dog destroyed it, and I don't have it anymore. So I haven't reread it since I read it. But I do remember thinking, when I was at like I'm like reading it like this, and I'm like this. I'm like right here. Okay. I'm like right here. And I'm like, there is so much left in this book. Like, is this a part 1? Because I don't read series. And I'm like, how are they finishing it in these 3 pages? And I remember I was like, there's no way this is going to get finished in 3 pages. And then they just did. All they did was just end it. It was just, like at the time, like she had just gotten home, they were giving the interview with the sitting on their couch, and they tell everybody that they're pregnant and everything. And that's like how it ended. And it was just like, okay, they just told everybody they're pregnant and like the end. And I was like, and like even leading up to that, there wasn't much. And like you hear that thing about like a rushed ending, like the whole book is so goddamn good. And then like you have a very rushed ending. That's what I felt like with this. I mean, that book was, I mean, it took off because it did, because it was so good. But the ending was so rushed. But at the end of the movie, I think they rushed it too. But leading up to it, you can tell, like, which I was not able to tell at the end of the book. I had to wait until the movie came out before I understood the end of the book, was that because it was done, and again, because this was Ben Affleck being so like hard and playing the part so well and being so well cast for it. And Amy being the sociopath and just everything's, well, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I found out at the end of the movie that they were now stuck with each other. Like the whole thing was, he said like flat out, like, I am divorcing you. I do not love you. I do not. I mean, I was going to divorce you before you disappear, but I'm still divorcing you. And she's just like, no, you're not. And like, she made it so that like when she goes on TV and says she's pregnant, he cannot divorce her now. They are America's sweetheart couple. They have to be together forever. And he is stuck. But you know what? She don't want to be with him either. So she is now stuck. Like this poor baby. But like I feel like she's stuck with him because she wanted nothing than to be with him as the character he wanted her to be. And she turned back into that character, even though the mask is already off. He already knows. But to everybody else, amazing Amy, and to everybody else now, everybody who gave him the bad rap is, oh my God, you were murdered her and blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, oh my God, you really were the loving husband who was just looking for her and you're so happy she's back. And now, oh my God, you're going to have a family. So like they hate each other, but it was portrayed much closer in the movie than it was on the page in the book. I did not get it. I was just like, all right, this book just ended. Like without resolution. Okay. So like they had a B and now it's ended. Like I didn't get the hatred that they had for each other dripping off the page at the end of the book, but I got the hatred dripping off of them in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my favorite bits of the end on the film is that he has a camaraderie with the detective that's been looking into Amy's disappearance and him as a suspect.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, she's just like sitting with him at lunch. She's his best friend. I'm like, what?
Yeah, but I appreciate the fact that she understands the gravity of how the depths of Amy's sociopathy and she's sort of the audience stand-in for being like, and you're still gonna stay with her. Like you have to have this they made the choice to put on screen an audience who's like, she's a sociopath. You're both terrible people. Why would you do this? He just, verbalizes like, no, I have to stay with her. And it's someone who gets to walk away, which his sister doesn't get to do. His sister is like, I'm going to be your sister forever. I love you, even though you're staying with this awful woman. But the detective gets to be like, I'm done with this story and walks away at around the same time that you're done with this movie. And you get to be like, oh,
you're like, me too, girl.
Exactly.
Like, I'm out of here, girl. I'm with you. I never want to see these people again. I don't want to watch them raise their toddler on social media.
No, like not at all. It leaves you wondering just how many of the people that like, oh, I'm so invested in this cute couple that's, on Instagram and look at their adorable families. It really does make you wonder, like, what are you behind the scenes? Because no one is this perfect.
It's all curated. I think if you're happy, you don't need to prove it.
Mm-hmm. I can't thank you enough for choosing this book because it was such a bomb in the industry. It really upended the way that we were like the thriller world and the way we were talking about like, I support women's rights, but also women's wrongs. And it's such an explosive thing that happened.
I can't believe this book was still available. Because I know we tossed around Memento. I know we tossed around Memento to do, which is another just fantastic film. And, but for for what I write, I think Gone Girl was definitely it roots in the duality of the good versus evil and how it's in everybody.
How can everybody keep in touch with you, your work, and the books that you've got coming out?
Well, my next book called The Way You Lie comes out in April 13th, 2027, and that is my twistiest one yet. So make sure you grab that one because I normally have like a good twist and a great twist, but this one has like three great ones. One's like a third of the way through, one's about 2/3 of the way through, and then one is like literally on the last page. Like it's, when you think you know, you don't. So that's super fun. It can be
So
found
good.
on Instagram at Jaime Lynn Hendricks Author, also on Threads at Jaime Lynn Hendricks Author, and on TikTok, which, I try, but I'm not on there often, but that's at Author JLH, and Twitter, which I'm not on really at all anymore, Author JLH. But yeah, like, DM me on Instagram. I like to come on book clubs. I do it all the time. If you have a book club and you just want me to send you book plates, I can do that too. I love interacting with my readers, so I'm around all the time. I'm very accessible. Come ask me anything, invite me anywhere. And I'm going on tour next year, The Way You Lie. So I
Awesome.
believe where I'm going. So again, if you want to see me, come and tell me. If you want me to move something around or add something, I'm still in the planning stages. My release party is on April 12th at Book and Bottle in St. Petersburg, Florida. And then April 13th is my release day. That will be at Mysterious Bookshop in New York City. And then for my plan, those two are
Awesome.
planned. Those two are done. And then my plan is to be in Providence, April 14th, DC, April 15th, and Charlotte, April 16th. And then I get the next
So
week.
you're Johnny Cashing it. You're going everywhere.
Oh, yeah. But I got Thriller Fest the next week in New York City. And then the week after that, I'm going to Houston, Chicago, Wisconsin, and LA.
Damn. Well, I'll be coming to see you in LA. So
And
that'll be
red eye,
fantastic.
I'm not even staying in LA. I'm taking the red eye back and I'm sleeping for a week.
God, yeah, you will.
Yeah, that's a lot for me. That's a lot for me.
That's a lot.
I could always replace or add a stop if somebody really wants to see me. Come and tell me. I'd love to meet people.